दिन फोन में लगा रहेगा।
दैट प्लानिंग तो मैंने भी कर रखी है ऊनो कॉइन के साथ।
नए जमाने के साथ नई चीजें आजमाएं। लुकिंग फॉर बिटकॉइन? डाउनलोड दी ऊनो कॉइन ऐप।
Crypto products are unregulated and could be highly volatile. Please be aware of the risks before investing.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Uno Coins weekly live session. It's after a little break that we are coming live, but today we bring in a banger of a session because today we're going to talk about Bitcoin and economic resilience and how to navigate through uncertainties. For which we have a very interesting guest speaker today, Mr. Deepak Kanakaraju, who is the CEO of Microstartup.com. Hi Deepak, how are you doing today? Welcome to the session.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and it's amazing to have you today. It's a bad habit of mine. Before we jump into the main topic, I often have our guests speak about their journey into Bitcoin because I find it very connecting. All of us have got these very interesting stories of coming into Bitcoin. So what
Yes.
is what is your story been like there?
Yeah. So I have always been fascinated by watching documentary movies for quite some time. And back in 2013, I was watching a documentary movie about the 2008 global financial crisis. And there, Bitcoin was mentioned. And they said that one of the reasons this global financial crisis happened is because the monetary issuance is not very regulated, and this whole fiat bubble has to keep expanding for the system to be stable. And whenever people repay their debt or default on their debt, then the whole system starts contracting. And the star of that show was our beloved Peter Schiff saying that gold is the one which is going to like skyrocket. And then I remember calling my dad and saying that, start investing in gold, it's going to go up and everything. So Bitcoin was just mentioned there, and I just googled about Bitcoin price. It was $100 at that time, but it was mentioned more as a currency or a payment system, something like PayPal, than a store of value. So unfortunately, I did not take it seriously at that time. And I think pretty much anybody who buys Bitcoin has heard about Bitcoin at a much lower price first, ignored it, kind of discarded it. And there is this meme that goes on which says that a guy is afraid of a dog, and the dog owner says that, don't worry, he's not going to bite, but he can hurt you in other ways. And the dog says, you didn't buy Bitcoin when you heard about it. Right? So that way, I think I kind of noticed it again in 2016. It was around $500 at that time, but I was kind of swayed by this whole startup thing, that when you get so indoctrinated with the Bangalore startup scene that you feel like that's the way to wealth creation. And um, I think it takes some time for us as individuals to see the power of compounding over a period of time for us to take anything seriously. But yes, there is investment angle to it. There is a transaction angle to it. But I think the thing that has fascinated me the most about Bitcoin is the property rights aspect of it, right? And everybody has a personal story of maybe their property rights being violated. And without going too deep into my personal story, if you think about Saifuddin, who wrote the book Bitcoin Standard, he talked about real estate being a shitcoin. And
Mhm.
that's because he was a Palestinian, and Israel just came and occupied their property, and their property was gone. So their property rights were violated. And I had gone through some legal troubles, and I was in trouble with certain politicians and people in power. And I felt that my property rights were not really protected by the legal system, to which I have been paying taxes and trusting the legal system. And when the system is kind of siding against temporary power structures for its own self benefit, and not really protecting the property rights of its citizens, is when I first questioned that maybe everything that I own can be taken away from me if the right people in power and if the right influence gets corrupted. So can I have a system which is incorruptible and which is something which protects my property rights? Because I work hard, I create products and services of value. We work in companies, we work as employees, and we do all this. But then, who do we trust? So that's when the search for trustless system started, and that's what led me to Bitcoin and become a big Bitcoin believer. That does not mean that I'm going to be somebody who is an outlaw, uh, but I do pay my taxes. Whatever Bitcoin I have today, it's all like through the system, in the system, and everything by the books. And if I ever sell my Bitcoin, I would obviously pay my 30% capital gains tax. But at the same time, having this feeling that unless I say yes, my Bitcoin cannot be taken away from me, helps me sleep very peacefully at night. So that's my Bitcoin journey.
That's beautiful. That's very beautifully put because I think all of us have got some level of, personal resonance with the way Bitcoin is. For me, it was the idea of financial freedom,
Mhm.
and not just financial freedom but freedom in general, the kind of freedom it brings you, the kind of freedom we run after. And we think money is going to get us that freedom, but eventually money is also something that is controlled by a system, and it's
Yes.
actually not in your control. It's not giving you power, rather it is the power controlling you, thinking,
Yeah.
keeping you under the illusion that this is getting you freedom, but it's not.
Mhm.
So that was the idea that really fascinated me about Bitcoin in particular. And that's where my journey began. So, what does microstartup.com do?
So Microstartup, if you can guess, has been inspired by MicroStrategy, and yeah, unfortunately, they changed their name to Strategy now. Kind of makes me feel left out, but anyway, so Microstartup as an idea is basically like for anyone and everyone who is in their 30s right now, or maybe even 25 plus. Uh, if you want to do something of your own, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily need to chase building a startup, getting it to 10 million, 100 million, and $1 billion valuation, right? I did start like that, having worked at Instamojo, Razorpay, Practo, Exotel, and all these successful startups, well-funded startups, and Razorpay, one of the companies, went to a $7.5 billion valuation. The Bitcoin journey taught me that one of the reasons that these startups get funded is because there is a lot of global capital which is looking for a return, and some of that capital finds its way into these consumer startups, and these startups don't necessarily make profit to justify its valuation. It's just the capital finds its place there. And the Bitcoin journey kind of influenced me that time is the most valuable thing, and you need to enjoy life, and you don't need to build a mega startup. You can build a micro startup. And my narrative is that I have consciously decided to keep the revenue of my startup around 10 lakhs a month, and I constantly fail trying to keep it at 10 lakhs a month. This month, I think we made a revenue of more than 42 lakhs. But I'm trying to keep it at 10 lakhs. Like, this is like an upside down world. While everybody is trying to make more money, I'm trying to cap the amount of revenue that I am making to 10 lakhs. And the idea is that, yes, I could build more revenue, get more employees, and keep running and chasing what? Like, half the startup world, or pretty much 90% of the startup world, is chasing an ego driven success. And I changed the definition of success that if I have plenty of free time to read books, plenty of free time to focus on my fitness, do my hobbies like motorcycling and everything, how much do I need to safely meet out my bills and also stack Bitcoin in the remaining time? That number came down to 3 lakhs a month for me. And 3 lakhs a month, uh, with 10 lakh a month in revenue and 3 lakh profit, is the number that I arrived at. So I defined micro startup as a small startup with a single digit team which makes 10 lakhs a month. And the idea is not to optimize for revenue but optimize for the founder's free time. So that's what micro startup is about.
Okay, that's interesting. That's very, very, very interesting idea. So, do you plan putting Bitcoin on your balance sheet anytime soon?
As of now, Microstartup as an entity does not own any Bitcoin, but definitely I would want to put it on its balance sheet. I am still exploring the legal formalities around it, and maybe I will start anytime soon. I'm still in debate with my CA and financial consultants whether to come into the limelight of putting Bitcoin on Microstartup's balance sheet, but Microstartup's founder definitely owns Bitcoin.
That's great. That's great. And I think the idea of putting Bitcoin on balance sheet grows more and more fascinating as the day passes. Thanks to Michael Saylor, he's been doing great on that part. And now we see an Indian company also, I think, that has put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Yes, Jet King. So that is 100% a very interesting thing to witness in the current time, and it will be very interesting to see, Bitcoin on the balance sheets of micro startup as well. So now jumping into the main topic, Deepak. Also, yeah, quickly, one more thing before we jump into the main topic. I think you also informed me about owning a little blogging site called, and that also there's a 30-day course on understanding Bitcoin. Could you tell us a little more about that?
So I was tired of explaining people to Bitcoin. Explaining people about Bitcoin, and I didn't know where to start. Should I start from the wallet configuration, or from the mining angle, or talking about the fiat system? So I thought that whenever somebody asked me, "Hey, tell me more about Bitcoin," uh, it cannot be like explained in like half an hour. It takes like minimum probably 10 hours. So I wrote a 30-day email sequence talking about how money is created in the first place, and whatever money that we use right now, where does it come from, how debt creates more money, how debt creates inflation. And then I talk a little bit about the wallet configurations and the technical side of Bitcoin, including how 256-bit security works, how blockchain mining works, and why Bitcoin is the only true blockchain that is decentralized, while everything else is like kind of like blockchain powered but not really decentralized. So I just put that course out, and I will be converting the chapters in that course into a book, and that is in progress, and probably in a month or two I will get that book published. So this has been completely like non-profit, just for education, and just as a side gig that I have been doing.
Okay, that's very interesting because very recently I put across my first article too. I don't know if you came across it or not, but yeah, that was my first article, and very interestingly, I got a lot of positive feedback on that, a lot of critical feedback as well, which I really appreciate. I think putting content out there is a great way to get started and get people the information that is much needed. And I was just going through the blog site. I saw a few interesting coverages around that, which I might have missed, on Twitter, because my source of news is Twitter,
Yes.
and whenever I go through it, that is the news I primarily see. And few of the coverages were very, very, very informative. So good work there as well. I mean, that is what India needs. So, do you have any plans on focusing on India-based issues that Bitcoin can solve?
I mean, India-based issues kind of puts a very wide net into pretty much all the issues that we have. If you can narrow it down to maybe one or two areas, I think pretty much Bitcoin can solve every problem out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So the article I wrote, I covered a few pointers in that. We have a
mm.
comment here by Daily Money Thoughts. They're asking Deepak sir, why don't you openly talk and write articles about Bitcoin on LinkedIn?
I do a lot, and I keep drawing people's attention to it. Maybe I will do more of it.
Yeah, I think we're all supposed to follow Deepak on LinkedIn, and that's going to be a lot of information for all of us to understand, to read about, to learn from. Now, jumping into the main topic, Deepak, something that I think both of us know, that the inflation state in India, outside India, it has been crazy. If we look at situations of Argentina, few other countries over there, it's been insane. And the problem is people do not understand what inflation is doing to them. Inflation is like a very non harmful kind of a concept to most normal people out there. They don't think of it as something very, very, very harmful. So how do you think Bitcoin helps us navigate through that? Because educational front, obviously, as an asset class, it is helping us hedge against the inflation, helping us preserve the value of the wealth that we are creating. Not just preserve, but also kind of increase it over time. If I have to say that. But yeah, in the sense of making people understand on the education front, how helpful have you found it to be so far?
It has been pretty difficult for me to convince people about Bitcoin, but then I do realize that I was also at that stage at some point. There is a sense of the fear of the unknown, and even though I heard about Bitcoin back in 2013 and I knew that it has something to it. See, whenever I go to, like, some conferences or exhibits, I'm always a curious person. I go talk to each and every booth out there, like, what do you do, what products do you have, and everything. And I remember back in around 2016, I attended Your Story TechSparks conference, and Coin had a booth there. And I still can't believe that I did not approach your booth or I did not talk about Bitcoin. Like, the Bitcoin maxis were not toxic enough. You should have, like, held my shirt and gave me a smack and, like, listened about Bitcoin, right? So people do have this fear of Bitcoin, and rather than talking about Bitcoin as an alternative investment or Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation, I like to focus on talking about the technical build and the architecture of Bitcoin, because first of all, see, I'm a civil engineer, not a techie or a programmer or coder necessarily, but I do understand how Bitcoin is built. Like, there is a node which has the entire blockchain, and the nodes are distributed. The mining is creating new blocks, and the block subsidy is there, and this is how new Bitcoin comes into existence. And these basics, once people start to understand, I think they will start appreciating Bitcoin on a purely engineering level, because come on, everybody does appreciate engineering. You take a flight from, let's say, Bangalore to Mumbai, uh, or whatever, and like, tell me one instance when people got into a flight and they were not fascinated by this whole thing of such a large machine flying, right? So I'm trying to get people interested in the engineering aspect of Bitcoin, and there can be different entry points to Bitcoin. As I said, my entry point was my property rights being violated, but that does not happen to, let's say, 99% of the people, right? You have your money in your equities or real estate or your gold, and it's pretty much safe for 99.9% of the people. So they are not going to wake up to the fact that, oh, I need something that is, like, purely mine and that cannot be seized. So that was my journey. But for the rest of the people, I think that's a good place to start understanding the engineering aspect. In terms of inflation and talking about inflation, I think most of the people who are at least listening to this podcast are not at the receiving end of inflation, but the beneficiaries of inflation, unfortunately. Because, see, anybody probably listening to this podcast or even has a laptop has at least some investments, or the family has some investments. And as long as you have some assets, which is real estate, stocks, equities, gold, or even at the worst case FTs, right? Your wealth is protected to some extent against inflation. At some point, yes, you might feel the pain that inflation is now faster than your assets appreciating. But as of now, at least real estate investors are seeing their asset prices appreciate, and they are happy. And they are happy that things are getting relatively cheaper for them. Uh, like, for example, let's say you have not probably 2x your house helper's salary, but your real estate prices have gone 2x in the past 5 years, no matter where you are in India. Minimum 2x it has gone. Since 2018, 2019, the prices of flats, plots, everything has mostly doubled. Now, the problem with inflation is that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and the people who are your maids, drivers, mechanics, delivery boys, they are at the receiving end of inflation. And even though they are the ones who need to embrace Bitcoin the most, it's almost impossible for us to reach that message to them until we get to uh, one world currency where everybody is transacting in Bitcoin, earning in Bitcoin, saving in Bitcoin. And that is probably decades away, right? That's probably several revolutions away. So in that way, I feel like the journey of Bitcoin is going at its own pace. We are probably looking at 80-90% year on year compounding for the past 10 years. And let it take its own pace, and let's see what happens, is what I am thinking. I am not that inclined to go and like orange pill people right away, because if you are going and orange pilling somebody right now, it's not like you are going to save their life, because the person who is probably going to get orange pilled and put a percentage of money into Bitcoin is already having some hard assets, and those hard assets are still going to grow much much faster than the people who do not have any assets, and this economic disparity will keep increasing. And Bitcoin has changed me as a person in such a way that, like, if I go in, like, Ola or Uber Auto, and if the bill is like 30 rupees for like a 1 kilometer ride, I usually end up paying 50 or 100, naturally, out of this feeling that, like, all the people at that level of the society where they are living paycheck to paycheck, their standard of living is constantly going down.
Yeah.
And right now I am kind of like, yes, I used to be the person who used to be like this, extreme toxic Bitcoin maximalist, where I mean, like, dude, like, retard. Now, why don't you put money in Bitcoin? But now I've like calmed myself down and started looking at more of a broader perspective of the economy itself. So, so that's the point that I am in, and I think it takes time, and it should take time for something that came out of nothing to eventually become the standard unit of value itself. Just like seconds is the standard unit of time, or kilograms is the standard unit of weight, you have standard unit of you have two standard units of weight, which is kilograms and pounds, and you have two standard units of length, which is kilometers and miles, and that itself creates a ton of confusion, right? If I go to the US and start driving, then I have to start calculating in miles, and that's confusing. We have probably 180 plus standard units of value in each and every country, and that will take a long time, and terrible amounts of pain experienced by people in terms of hyperinflation, which is an eventuality. It's a mathematical eventuality, right? And once you have more and more cases of Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, and where the currencies are failing, I believe as of now we might not go to a Bitcoin standard directly. It might go to a US dollar standard and then to a Bitcoin standard, because looks like what US might be doing is to basically get stable coin to the rest of the world and get people to transact in US dollar stable coin, which is relatively a stronger currency compared to those nations' weaker currencies. Like when I went to Vietnam, my friend told me that don't exchange your dollars for Vietnamese dongs at the airport currency exchange. Keep dollars with you, because people here want dollars. So I went to a hotel. I checked out from the hotel. The cost of the entire checkout bill was around $100, which is 2.5 million Vietnamese dongs, and that was almost the same as Google rate. And they said, "Give me dollars." And then I asked my friend, like, these guys are giving me a better exchange rate than what the airport currency exchange will give me. Like, why? Because people want to keep dollars, because dollar kind of holds its
So,
value a little
yeah,
stronger
it's
than
them.
Vietnamese dongs. So what Vietnamese dong is to the dollar, dollar will be to Bitcoin at some point in time. But until then, it will continue remaining a niche asset class than a medium of exchange for a large category of people. We first see our first milestone is to flip gold, right? So until we are looking at a 600, $700,000 Bitcoin, which flips the market cap of gold, probably $1 million Bitcoin, because gold will also go up in the next 5 years. Until we flip gold, we can't really think of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And until it becomes a standard medium of exchange, it won't become a unit of account. And the real benefit of Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and a unit of account will come. The benefit will be for the people who do not have any assets, because they can't buy any assets. Like somebody earning, like, let's say 30,000 a month, they can't put 3,000 a month into any asset class right now, right? What will they put it into? It's so confusing. You go into the stock market, even I get confused, right? Should I buy Adani stock, or should I buy Nifty 50, or like, what this is the confusion, right? So we will the most benefit of Bitcoin will be enjoyed by people when it becomes a unit of account and a medium of exchange, and then it will incentivize savings, right? So somebody earns like 1,000 satoshis in a month, and They spent 700 satoshis, they kept 300 satoshis, and that 300 satoshis keeps increasing in purchasing power over a period of time. Then they don't need to work so hard. Right now, we are just sucking out the blood from the bottom 90%, right? The top 10% is kind of benefiting from the bottom 90%. And if this is led to continue without an alternative system coming up and strengthening like Bitcoin does, then we are looking at a total economic collapse like Roman Empire, right? And we don't want that. And Bitcoin is basically a meme, and we are memeing it into existence. And it's not like Bitcoin investors or buyers should be just buying and waiting and hodling and just waiting for the price to increase, because the adoption, the price increase, and all that is driven by conversations like this. These conversations is what makes Bitcoin real and gives life to Bitcoin. And maybe there is one person who is watching this who is like, okay, let me go study in Bitcoin, and suddenly they will have the aha moment, and then they will go tell a few other people. And that is how Bitcoin has come this far, right? Toxic Bitcoin maxis are the ones who have given life to Bitcoin and made Bitcoin real. And $100,000 Bitcoin is possible today because of the toxic Bitcoin maxis. So all the toxic Bitcoin maxis out there, we are not toxic enough. That's what I would say.
Toxic and not toxic enough. I
Yeah.
think I think it's quite an interesting way to put it. I'm going to quickly address the comments here in the comment box, and then I have a few points to add. So Rahul is saying, "Hey guys, all good. Hi Rahul, good to have you. Inflation is the best friend of the government, I tell you." Okay. Conqueror 332 is saying exactly Deepak, extremely good point. No point in orange pulling, to be honest. And Learnwell is saying hi. Hi Learnwell. So what Concord 332 is saying over here, no point in orange pilling, to be honest. And I happen to agree with you and Concord in some manners that right now it might be too much of an effort going out there and orange pilling people. But at the same time, I can't help but empathize with anybody and everybody out there who doesn't understand what inflation is doing to their wealth. Now, there's an interesting perspective. Anybody who has a laptop would have their money invested in Bitcoin, not in Bitcoin, say in general, would have invested into FDs or some sort of things. I agree with that. Most people of the current workforce, or I would say the people who are into the workforce 5 6 years 3 years 2 years, are considering mutual funds as their prime option of investment. I go and happen to ask them ki, Acha, why mutual funds, why do you think, why should you do mutual? They have no answer to it. They have legit no answer to my question is, what is your purpose of investing? Like,
Mm.
because this fiat job is not gonna do so much so for me, so I'm gonna make more money with investment. I'm like, it doesn't happen that way. Not making money, the first prime purpose is to preserve the wealth that you're creating,
Yeah.
because you're going to lose out on your purchasing power year on year given the inflation rate. I mean, raises क्या हो रही हैं जॉब्स में? bare minimum raise मिलता है हर साल most companies में, and I have not seen a single employee so far in my career who's been happy with their raise. you know on
Yeah.
April, saying ki, okay, I got this much raise, my life is sorted, after this I don't need any raises. So that is one thing, and I believe that people are failing to understand where inflation is like this termite that is eating up their wealth inside out. And I think my parents don't understand that too. My family barely gets that, like my extended family and all, when I explain it to them. So one go, it's very like, oh, it's such a complicated thing. Second go, when I give them the examples on what the money expansion rate has been like for the RBI, and how much inflation there has been, what is it doing to your wealth? Imagine getting a raise, getting into a higher tax slab year on year, and the fact that maybe the inflation rate is slightly higher than the amount of your raise. So what is happening is you are paying more taxes, you're earning lesser than the previous year. So your purchasing power is getting reduced. That is one thing. Plus, you're paying more to the government. So
Yes.
that
Yes.
making sense. When I ask these questions, I think a lot of people tend to get interested into what I'm trying to talk about. And I think everybody should get to know about that, because financial literacy and financial empowerment in India specifically is close to zero. I mean, as I remember from the data of 2022, the financial literacy rate of India was 26 or 27%, something like that, 26.7% something. And that is so bad. I mean, only 26% people know how to manage their funds, how to do what to do with all their money and all investing. Rest of this crowd that is going into stock market, they're just going into it thinking ki, oh, okay, something is happening, this is a good company, this random person has told me that this company is good, I should invest in it and I'll make money out of it. People
Yeah,
are not
yeah.
able to even understand कि क्या चल रहा है उनके पैसे के साथ में. And that's where it gets me really confused. Confused, I mean, at one point it used to get me confused. Now that I look at the whole thing, I realize that it's our education system where it all starts from, where this has never been stopped, where this has never been taught, and this has never been stopped.
Yes.
Where our mindset has never been shaped in a way where, of course, we've been taught how to save money, like ये ऐसे सेव करते हैं, पैसा ऐसे कॉस्ट करेंगे, वो सब कुछ सीखा है. बट व्हेन इट कम्स डाउन टू कि क्या हो रहा है हमारे पैसे के साथ आने वाले दिनों में, इसको कैसे मैनेज करना है, वो किसी स्कूल बुक ने हमें सिखाया नहीं, किसी कॉलेज ने हमें सिखाया नहीं है. कैसे डील करना है रियल लाइफ में मनी प्रॉब्लम से, किसी ने नहीं सिखाया. क्यों नहीं सिखाया? Again, that is a very bigger question. Like it's a very high level question कि क्यों नहीं सिखाया? There are multiple answers to कि क्यों नहीं सिखाया. Multiple theories that can come across to क्यों नहीं सिखाया. But एक और जो interesting thing I find over there is कि हमने सीखने की कोशिश भी नहीं की.
Mm,
A lot
mm.
of times us, I don't know if this is the conditioning that we have received in so many years, but I see people being super lazy around with their money. They're like, oh, okay, inflation fine, as long as चल रहा है हमारा ठीक, we are good enough. Like, who cares कि कल क्या होने वाला है and all that. The minute you tell them कि this could be next year, that's when they really, get onto their toes and like, okay, now this seems like a bigger problem to me.
Mm, mm.
So, and yeah, the sector that you talked about, the watchmen of the society, the people who come to work at the house helps, the domestic helps kind of people, they need Bitcoin the most
Yeah.
because their standard of living is 100% deteriorating more than ideally it can and it should for anybody. I mean, I see people who used to come, help out my family. Now their kids are not able to get the education that they're supposed to. They're dropping out of school. If not dropping out of the school, they're going to a relatively cheaper school with a not a good quality of education over there. So all of those
At
things.
this juncture, I would like to add a point on it. Also matters on who we are orange pilling and whether they will get orange pilled or not. And I have seen a stark difference in who is more likely candidate to get orange pilled because we don't want to expend our energy on somebody who will never get it. And I tried to like put them into two different buckets: people who will never get it, no point in talking to them, and people who will get it. And the people who will never get it are the people who are not creating real products and services and through that like earning a living, right? When you look at any system, any society, any economy, you will have a certain amount of a good percentage of people who are producing goods and services of real value. Let's say we have a cook, she cooks breakfast for us. We have a shopkeeper, we have a driver, and these are some things. And yes, there are companies which create products and services for us. There are Indian companies, international companies. These people are creating goods and services for us, and they are the producers of the economy. You will always have a percentage of the economy who are consumers and they are not really producing anything, but they are still in this ego war of status or whether they hold a position or whatever. And I don't want to name anything specific. I think people will know like who are the real creators of the economy, but anyone who is a paper pusher or anyone who is sitting and just talking or doing some politics, like politician, not necessarily politicians, anybody who is in an office, like um, you know like let's say there is an office and you have a boss and the boss really does not do anything, he's just like playing around politics and he's not really creating anything. These are the kind of people who will never get orange pilled because To get orange pilled, first you need an inbuilt sense of intuition that hey, something is wrong with the system. That I'm working very hard, I'm saving an amount of money. Isn't this saving enough for me to pay me in the future for living a better quality of life? Now I am being put through a complex maze of financial education that zerodha mein there is a zerodha varsity of like, see, Bitcoin is very simple to understand. Once you look into the multiple layers of it, much easier to understand P and E ratio and whatever the stock market demands us to understand in terms of just wanting to protect my savings. Bro, I'm not trying to become a smart investor and become like a millionaire overnight. No, I just want my economic battery to be preserved so that I can work for 2 days and take off one day so that I can just chill and enjoy life. So I have provided value and I will consume that value later, right? So when I try to orange people, I look at people who are like working really hard in their business or job or whatever, and they're real producers and creators. And now you need a store of value, you need an economic battery to store your future energy. They are much more likely to get orange pilled. And yes, I'm not completely given up on orange pilling people, even the people, sophisticated class of people, because to some extent people buying Bitcoin and eventually taking Bitcoin to $1 million is required for Bitcoin to eventually become a medium of exchange. Because uh, somebody who, like, they will not, like, if they, like, 5 years down the line, if exchanges run out of Bitcoin and there is no way to buy Bitcoin, then people would want to earn Bitcoin, right? That would be the only way to accumulate some Bitcoin, and that's when the medium of exchange starts. And these people who are the parasites of the society, who try to earn a living without actually creating something real like a product or service, they are much less likely to understand Bitcoin, because the fiat system has served them and continues to serve them. Fiat system itself is a invisible system of stealing small portions of your time and energy without that being very painful right now, and that's what inflation is, right? So if your body temperature is supposed to be 98 and it has become 98.1, you are not going to be really bothered. And if it is like 98.2, 98.3, tk, fine. And that's what the inflation stage is right now, right? If
Yeah.
it's going 9900, then you are like, oh my god, I'm getting a fever, like something is getting wrong. If it's going like 105, 110, and then though you are like absolutely pressured to take a step, and that situation will come, because it's a mathematical inevitability that it's gonna come, because the fiat system cannot function without it continuously expanding. And a recession is the fiat system contracting, but nobody likes the fiat system contracting, because the system is so fragile. Like, how stupid it is that people buy a real estate property, let's say 1 crore ka flat, to protect themselves against inflation, but they put 20 lakh down payment and take an 80 lakh loan, and that 80 lakh loan is mitted out of thin air, which creates inflation, right? Your very act of trying to protect yourself against inflation is what is creating inflation, because the entire real estate market, 80% is leveraged debt. And now you are so leveraged that even a little bit of contraction threatens the whole global economic system. The fiat bubble has to start keep expanding, and if we don't have an alternate system to support as the expansion keeps going up, then we are going to have like a total economic collapse. And the economic collapse will not come in the sense that the system will stop working. The system will always continue to expand at a particular pace or a faster pace, and holders of hard assets will become insanely rich. But it will start collapsing when the poor are so poor that they will resort to crime. Like, if I have a kid and the kid is going hungry, I wouldn't like hesitate going and stealing somebody's house, because I want to feed my kid, right? And we are starting to see the very early signs of that happening, that in the past 4 years since COVID time, we have definitely seen crime rate increase in, let's say, Bangalore, right? If you go take your car out into Sarjapur Road or some outer areas of Bangalore, you have people trying to come and fall in front of the car and trying to extract money. So petty crime increasing is the first sign that the economic engine is starting to show its cracks, or the nation is falling sick, right? And I'm seeing the very early signs that that sickness is coming. Like when you look at Los Angeles also, they say that it's the third world city in a first world country, right? People breaking into glasses and car glasses, breaking it and trying to steal stuff and everything. So where do I see all this going is that I think that it will eventually go to a situation where this will be like gradually then suddenly kind of situation, and when the suddenly comes, it will be such chaotic uh, environment that it will also give an opportunity for new leaders to emerge in such a chaotic system, because the current leadership, whatever they can do, unless they suddenly wake up one day and become like El Salvador's president, the system is going to go into a gradual chaos which no leader can contain. And once it becomes a chaos, then we have an opportunity for that new leadership, and we have to see whether that new leadership embraces hard money or not. Fingers crossed. Sometimes it does feel like maybe I can do something to be part of that leadership, but again, the whole Bitcoin ethos is a non-ego driven thing, that you are like, see, Bitcoin has changed me in such a way that I buy a new car and I don't even post it on Instagram. I'm like, I don't want anybody to know, right? I'm like comfortable in my nobodiness. And that's what Bitcoin makes you. But the whole trying to become a leader of a country is a completely opposite game. It's a very ego driven game, and a completely nasty game which you have to play. And trying to be a Bitcoiner and trying to be like a politician is like complete opposites, right? And that's what we saw. Like, we thought that we got a Bitcoin president in US, but then we
Oh,
got Trump and Melania meme coin, right?
yeah. Oh God, Trump.
That's it's gonna always happen.
I think nobody believed in no Bitcoiner believed in Trump being a Bitcoiner. Bitcoiner, we all knew that he's a shitcoiner. But then
Yeah,
again, coming back down to the idea of him versus Kamala, he was a more feasible option for
yeah.
the rest of the world than Kamala, because Kamala's statement was legit like Bitcoin is the money of criminals.
Mm.
So I mean, she literally stated a great amount of network effects that we boast on currently as a bunch of criminals, and I was personally offended because, like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah,
So
it happens. Yeah, but Trump needed Bitcoin more than Bitcoin needed Trump,
yeah,
because he kind of rode on that crypto bandwagon for a while. And I also feel like this shitcoinery is actually going to go to the next level in the upcoming years, because what I feel is that before Bitcoin possibly heads towards becoming the world reserve currency and the world reserve capital and the one world currency that everybody transacts in, I think we will have this transition period from the world's largest capital market, which is US, to try to strengthen the dollar by getting more stable coin out internationally, because Tether is now buying billions and billions of dollars of US government bonds. And US government bonds does need a market, and China does not seem to be too much in favor of buying US government bonds. They used to. They had trillions of dollars. They still have trillions of dollars of US government bonds, but they have also started buying gold. They have started diversifying some of that funds into Belt and Road Initiative and everything. And US does not have much options to force other people to buy US government bonds. But as all the global currencies start weakening across all the countries, and we are seeing it in our country as well, uh, people would start preferring keeping some of it in USDT, irrespective of the legal status of it, right? That would be a transitionary uh, kind of intuitive phase for people who are not completely orange pill, because people who are completely orange pill like me, I don't have any purpose of holding USDT. What would I do with it, right? I have my long term store of value, which is Bitcoin, and rest of the time I'm focusing on business to make money and
that
spend
might.
less than what I earned and put the remaining stack some sats, right? This will be still a very small percentage of people. So what the US would do is that, how can US increase the demand for US dollar stable coin is by increasing the like making crypto kind of the stock market, right? So now crypto can possibly become bigger than the Nasdaq or any stock market indices in such a way that, because only when you are trading you will kind of keep putting it into USDT and keep flipping it back. So if they have to increase the demand for USDT and keep the demand for US dollar bonds high, then I think we are going to start seeing a mega shitcoinery kind of like of proportions that we have never seen before, out of the pure need for the US dollar dominance to go up. So that is also something that I am seeing it as a transitionary phase, before people start realizing very painfully that, hey, maybe I should not start. Like, people will come play around in meme coins, then they will play around in projects, trade it with USDT, and they will slowly start, putting some of that into Bitcoin gently, like, and then they will start understanding that Bitcoin is the only true decentralized blockchain. And right now also people are saying that, oh, the altcoins have crashed, but Bitcoin is holding value. So now it starts to look like a hold of, store of value. People will start like kind of entering into Bitcoin through the crypto route slowly, and that's more likely to happen than people just waking up one day and like, I'm orange pill. That's not gonna happen. That's too much to expect.
Yeah, indeed, that is too much to expect. It's a very slow process. I think we would all agree that even for us, it wasn't a one go process. The first time I think I started, how I got into it was because in college I really needed to make some extra money, and I was like, okay, there's this opportunity. I need to write articles. That's all. They're gonna pay me good money. So that's how I got into it. And when I initially used to write about these things, I was like, oh, okay, what is this so technical? Okay, fine. Just gonna rephrase it and put it across that way. But I think there was a transitionary phase that happened for me as well, where I was like, okay, this makes sense. And what I used to write about, I kind of started understanding about it first before writing about it. And that kind of changed the scenario for me. And I think it took time for all of us to be orange pilled. None of us were orange pilled in like one go.
We are underestimating how many years it took for us to get completely orange pilled, right? And we are expecting us to like have a half an hour conversation, and them not getting it and getting angry at them is like unfair to
Yeah.
them.
It's very unfair because we were no, I don't know. I can't think of an example where I know one single person who read about Bitcoin once and were like convinced, okay, this is my thing. It
Mm-hmm.
took a lot of time for all the people out there, including me, including you. I think if I have to give it a timeline, it took me nice 1.5 year to be orange pill, and thanks to the president of Uno Coin, Sunny. So Sunny spent a lot of a great deal of time. You know how I used to be like. We used to have these sessions, and Sunny would be there in those sessions. He would only talk about Bitcoin and not about crypto. And I would be like, Sunny, listen, let's talk about crypto also. No, we really need to educate people on these things. He's like, I'll tell you why I won't. So that's how I was orange filled. He's played a great part in orange filling me. And that's when I understood ki, acha, okay, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really grateful to him because he has spent a great deal of time, time and energy to explain me about Bitcoin. Why is it important? What makes sense? What doesn't make sense? And all of that, like, he used to ask like legit questions. Why do you think that this is this way and this is not this way? So
Mm-hmm.
all those things combined, I think that's where I cultivated this habit of asking questions more than answering them. Because when people, when they start to contemplate answers for themselves, that's where the curiosity, intellectual curiosity kind of kicks in. Yeah, so, okay, yeah, this is a legit question, and I don't have to answer for it.
The moral implications of trading in, let's say, meme coin, you might put $1,000 and make $10,000 out of it, but end of the day, that mindset of wanting to get something for nothing is kind of getting expanded in your head. In fact, it's better that people put money into meme coins and burn their fingers, than actually make money, because once they make money, they will be calculating, like, if somebody is, let's say, CTC is like 20 lakhs, and they have to work hard for an entire year to earn that 20 lakhs and probably save 10 lakhs out of it, and they made that 10 lakhs out of meme coin trading. It kind of fucks with your psyche in a way that you can get something for nothing, and that's not good, right? So obviously 99% of the people lose money in crypto trading, and now crypto is also kind of creating a lot of noise in the signal that is Bitcoin. Fortunately or unfortunately, we can see it in a positive way that eventually people will get to Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin as a long-term store of value, irrespective of whether it's volatile or not. Or we can say that Bitcoin could have succeeded much bigger, much faster, and the adoption could have been much better if we had not had Ethereum, Solana, and all this BS, right? But I think it also happened with metals. People were confused at some point in time, right? They put money in silver, they put money in gold, thought platinum was also a store of value. And then in the metal category, eventually gold became the store of value, right? Right now, nobody thinks of platinum as a store of value or copper as a store of value. It took some time to understand that gold is the only scarce thing, while all these things are like in abundance. So all the crypto coins are in abundance. You will have n number of other projects in the next by the next bull cycle. You will like probably by 2029 you will have something like Solana, which is smart contract much better than Solana, right? Now people have for the first time burnt their fingers with Ethereum, like people who were Ethereum maxis.
Ethereum Maxis, I've never understood this term honestly. What are you even trying to say?
Yeah, what does it even to mean? Like, what do you even mean by Ethereum maxi? Like, so they are not maxis at all. They just thought that okay, Ethereum is not just a store of value but also smart contracts, blah blah blah. But people have started burning their fingers with Ethereum this cycle, right? So a lot of that will slowly, like just like platinum, silver, eventually kind of faded away, and it just became gold. I think Bitcoin will kind of eventually. But anyway, I think the conversation has been a little bit more frustration and negativity around this whole space. But if we have to look at the positive aspects of it, I think there is a lot to appreciate about the engineering aspect of Bitcoin. My dad had a friend, and he's a little bit like software engineer and types, and he thinks that he is very smart. And my dad told him that, oh, my son is like studying Bitcoin, learning a lot about Bitcoin and everything. And he, of all people, one of the most intelligent in my dad's batch, even though he's 60 plus, told that, hey, how can you trust it? It's all digital. What if somebody will come and delete Bitcoin? Then Bitcoin will be gone. My dad also, like, my dad is not patient enough to understand Bitcoin, but he does trust me that it is something. And he told me, like, innocently the same question that he's asking me, like, what if somebody deletes Bitcoin? What about that? हाँ, like मैं कहाँ से शुरू करूँ? Like blockchain है, nodes है, distribute. So I told him in a very simple way. It's as stupid as saying that, oh, English has 26 alphabets, and somebody will come and delete all the vowels, and we cannot like talk in English anymore. It's as stupid as that, because come on, the whole world can fork into a new language, and we can continue speaking in English. English is a decentralized language protocol. It's not owned by anyone, not controlled by anyone. Yes, once in a while new words appear in the Oxford dictionary, but it's not based on that. It's based on consensus that if a new word is adopted, some Gen Z slang is coming along right now. Delulu is the Solulu apparently. So that if it gets used, it gets used, right? That's like a soft fork of uh, English language, which might be contained in Gen Z and then might, like, eventually fade away, or it might get adopted into the mainstream language. So it's like Bitcoin is like that. It's a protocol that is uh, it's kind of like, somebody said, oh, it's unregulated. Like, bro, Bitcoin is the most regulated asset in the world. It's not regulated by rulers, it's regulated by rules, and that's much better, because nobody can come and change those rules, because that rule is something that hundreds of thousands of people across the world have agreed on, and every person who is running a node is agreeing on that protocol. And it's a roof supported by 1,000 pillars, and you can't just like damage a few pillars and expect the roof to fall. And it's getting stronger and stronger. It's growing more like a organism, right? One of the options of a book title that I had for writing about Bitcoin was the Bitcoin virus, right? That's how it's spreading. It's like uncontrollable. It's uncontrollable because every person who gets orange pilled,
That's
like
a
they,
very British title, if I must say. It's very catchy.
okay, thank you. So I had two options. One was spiritual money. Actually, I'm going to settle more on spiritual money than Bitcoin virus, because Bitcoin virus might have like feel like a negative connotation to it.
But
And
that is why I said it's a clickbait. A lot of people, oh, what is this virus thing? Let me just give it a quick
yeah,
read.
that can also be a good title. But yeah, so do we have time? Do we have a little bit more time?
Yeah, we have about like 5, 6 minutes more. Go on.
Okay. So I will use this 5, 6 minutes to talk about one of the most important aspects of Bitcoin in my personal life, which is I have been exploring a little bit of spiritual journey, and I've done Vipassana. I listen to a lot of Osho and everything. And wherever I go, the spiritual journey and the spiritual masters have always talked about all the misery that is coming to you is because of your ego, right? And you have an ego, and this ego is something that has come naturally to us as need for survival. We did not have egos when we were like 2 year old kids, right? We were innocent. And when we look at toddlers running around, we tell them that they are innocent because they don't have like a sense of self and a sense of ego. That sense of ego starts coming for a certain aspect of survival. That, let's say, when you are 6 years old, you start lying, and then you have a sense of self. Then you have this perspective that how others are looking at me, and that self image starts getting stronger and stronger as you become a teenager, 20-year old, 25-year old. It has always been for survival, right? But when you are 25, when you are 30, when you are 35, you are highly likely to reach a stage where you don't need to play politics and you don't need to have a ego for survival, right? Some people take it all the way up to their grave. 85 years old may we do have egoistic people, right? Because they did not understand the game or they misread the game. But at some point, you have to be becoming innocent again, and that process is more of letting go of your ego. But we live in a day and age where it's not necessary that, like Buddha, you have to go into the forest where you are nothing to no one, right? You need to go into very harsh living conditions if you have to live a life without ego, because you need to do that ego play to kind of live in a society and to have your basic luxuries of food, house, shelter, and everything. So when you look at, let's say, tribal people, like, let's say, 2000 years, like not 2000 years, but let's say 5000 years back, humans used to live in tribes of 200, 300 people. There was no store of value. And when you don't have a store of value, is when your survival is completely dependent on your status in the society. So probably the tribal leader had the highest chance of survival, and a slave in the tribe did not have any chance of survival or for reproduction, and those genes kind of faded away, right? So now, in the spiritual journey, if you have like an absolutely strong economic battery, that you have worked hard, you have created value for the world, now Bitcoin gives you an option to kind of become a nobody. And being a nobody, you can still be sure that you have the basic necessities can be paid off by your Bitcoin appreciation and selling some of your stack eventually over a period of time. And in terms of enabling people to follow their spiritual journey, I think there has been no better tool than Bitcoin, because that is the most thermodynamically stable store of time, energy, and value that you have, which has been engineered out of pure mathematics and science, is the thing that excites me the most about Bitcoin. So, in a few years down the line, I plan to ride a motorcycle across the country and probably across the entire world, and probably make motorcycle vlogs than trying to chase this journey of chalo startup build karo, $100 million startup banao, Forbes 30 under 30 or 40 under 40, whatever it is. So I never thought that I would be the person who will eventually drop out of this game, because I think the only way to win this game is to drop out of it. Because what are you trying to do? Like, you want to become Elon Musk. Everybody wants to become Elon Musk. So that race never stops of who I am, how do I, trying to get that significance of who I am in this world. I was chasing that. Now I have just made a U-turn and started going in the opposite direction. I'm slowly starting to remove all my social media posts. So I'm like unmaking myself socially, at least, right? Not in terms of my health or in terms of my spiritual awareness, but in terms of my social identity, I'm unmaking myself. And I think Bitcoin is enabling me to do that. And that's the most exciting part of Bitcoin for me personally.
That's very exciting, and I'm very excited to read your book, The Spiritual Money, and I really want to see how it is coming out. This quick synopsis has made me very, very, very intrigued about what the book has to offer. So
Mhm.
when do you plan on publishing it?
Probably before April. That's my target. I think 80% completed the book already in terms of my 30-day Bitcoin course, but I will add this spiritual angle to it on, why this is a spiritual tool than an economic tool.
That makes a lot of sense, and that is a very, very, very interesting perspective to put across. I think we would have to have another little unofficial sort of a session someday and have this discussed more
Yeah.
in detail, because honestly, I have seen this. At least I have largely observed most of the Bitcoiners are super spiritual. some reason is there, I don't know. And because a lot of people right now, I come from the spiritual capital of this world, Varanasi, and a lot of
Okay.
people, yeah, while I was recently traveling there for the Kumbh and everything, a lot of my Bitcoiner friends were like, just take some Bitcoin flags and all there.
Ah,
Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the Kumbh because of the unprecedented crowd. But yeah, Bitcoiners are super spiritual, and that's gonna be a big hit for sure.
yeah, yeah. Like eventually sell everything, own nothing. Just remember your 24 words and you are good.
Yeah, that's all you need to hold on to in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting conversation today, Deepak, and I would love to host you again for this spiritual money concept and talk about it.
Yeah, offline event. You will see the true toxic in me come out because this is a public forum and I'm really
Yeah, we
controlling
can
my.
we can do an offline talk as well. But I would also want to like publicize it a little and have more people listen to that conversation. We
Yep,
should
yep.
organize it sometime.
Yeah, yeah. If we are in closed doors, and then though you will see the beast in me unleashed in terms of what changes we can bring about in the economy with Bitcoin. But considering that right now it's a public forum, and
Yeah,
it is weird that people end up hating Bitcoiners. Like if Bitcoin goes to $1 million, they are not going to be like, "Oh, he saw it coming." They will be like, "Oh, he got lucky." That's what people will say.
yeah, I know, right?
So I am like constantly in this battle of should I go and talk about Bitcoin or should I just shut up and just enjoy my stack, right? But I am like talking about Bitcoin anyway, publishing a book and everything because like, once you become a Bitcoiner, it's impossible not to talk about it.
Yeah, there's no going back. So definitely we will catch up offline. Maybe one of the events at Bitshala, maybe one of the meetups that we'll be organizing in the coming days. But yeah, it'll be super fun, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to the book that is yet to come, The Spiritual Money. Everybody, requesting everybody to please follow Deepak on Twitter and LinkedIn so that we can read his articles, whatever he's coming up with, very interesting information. And honestly, I don't think 1 hour is enough to have a conversation with Deepak. There's so much more that we need to
Yeah, I
learn.
can go on and on. Like I can speak for 10 hours about Bitcoin.
Every Bitcoiner there. So, thank you so much, Deepak, for coming in today and sharing your insights on with such different perspective. I really am very intrigued. So, hope to have you again and meet you as well in person and talk more about these things. Till then, everybody who's watching this session, stack sad, stay humble. We'll see you again next week, same day, same time. Bye bye.
Awesome. Bye bye.